Okay, here's your quick tip. Last, in our quick tip number 12, we did a little showing you how an easy way to do a preliminary drawing for still life. This one is an easy way to do a preliminary drawing for landscape. So first of all, you look at the format of the landscape, and you try to set up a canvas that is something of the same format. That is, if you want to use the whole format. If not, you would want to crop it so that it would crop to the format of the canvas. So there's the first tip. The second tip is try to avoid putting every little detail in your preliminary drawing. That can just confuse you. But try to think in terms of large shapes. So when you're setting the preliminary drawing up, first of all, just look, can I divide that can I divide the whole scene into 2 or 3, certainly no more than 4 large shapes. And so let's see if we can do that. One good way to start would be to look at what shapes are closer to you, what's in front. And in this scene, we see that this area right here, we could call this one big shape. All this, the frontal grass, the trees, that whole works could be our one big shape. So when we see that big shape starts about right over here, well, I don't have to draw grass, I'll just make a line. And what I want to be sure of is that my angle, the angle of this shape is the same angle as I find here. And you can go to the quick tip on using the angle clock, or the perspective clock, I think I call it, to see how to do that if you feel uncomfortable with doing that sort of thing. So then we see now where does this shape come to about right here, and you can sort of compare, kind of make a mental note of where the center of the scene is, and a mental note. You might even, sometimes I do this, if there's lots of stuff there, I'll just make a little division that's somewhere sort of in the center, and that gives me a clue. Then that major shape we're talking about comes right over here, and so then I'd sort of just indicate that. Now I don't need to be drawing trees, but I can make kind of a little directional gestural shapes here that show me something of what those shape, how that shape, the edge of that particular big shape is working. And so see, then that would look something like that, and so that would continue, and then that, let's see what else I need. That is the first major big shape. Then the second major big shape is over here. Then we look at how those shapes can subdivide, and if we wanted to add some more little indications of what we might do, since that's in shadow, we might do that here. But let's look at the major subdivision, how the light hits the edge of this section of growth right here. We might do something like this. Now again, once again, we want to honor the angle, and so that then makes this a subdivision of this shape. Then we have another subdivision right here with this little bunch of foliage, and so we can indicate the kind of how the edges of that foliage go, and we can see, okay, there is another subdivision actually that goes on down like this, and we could do that. And then there's another subdivision, which is that group of trees behind there, and so we might indicate that just with little gestural strokes that show something of the character. And we don't even have to put that big tree trunk in, but we might, because we want to use that as information. So there is one subdivision of shape, 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 and then we would look at how does this subdivision of shape work. Well, that one goes into, that particular shape goes into this subdivision. Well, the major concern about that one is the angle of those trees, because that helps define the perspective. So you might just indicate here the angle of those trees as you see them come down, and then you might make some indication of that as you're putting this together. And you might make some when you're doing the preliminary drawings, a good time to make some compositional decisions, like this tree I don't see that it serves any compositional purpose at all. It seems to me a total distraction. So for the moment, I would delete that from the composition, and I would just make this little indication here, and then this indication. You see, this sort of comes down as an angle there, and where does it begin? It begins a little bit below the halfway mark, and it sort of angles down sort of like that, and then you get this line, and that line begins a little bit, about right here, and it kind of goes uphill, and watch those edges of riverbanks. They sort of zigzag a little bit instead of being straight. Then then we look within these. Do I need any other division of space? So with that, we have this indicates not only the top line of that, but the bottom line of the trees. And probably if you need to show something else of the shapes here, that's not a bad idea. The next thing at this point would be to step back and say, do I have here all the information I need to begin the painting? If you don't have all the information you need, then put in a little bit more, but try to avoid too many details in the preliminary drawing, because that can just become confusing. Other thing is, you want to spend time with your preliminary drawings, or you want to be sure that your preliminary drawing is is the structure you want the final painting to be, or pretty close. So if you didn't get some areas like you want them, take a damp paper towel. Oh, by the way, I didn't say this. I'm using the Tombow N15 pen. The Tombow pens are water soluble, wonderful for doing preliminary drawings for oil paintings, and well, mainly for oil paintings. So you just take a damp paper towel and pull away the Tombow marks like that, and then throw new marks in. You can set up a preliminary drawing with almost any kind of medium. If you're working in acrylic, you might want to use a pencil, something that's not water soluble, because the acrylic paint itself will melt with your preliminary drawing, and you will lose your space. Watercolor people often enjoy preliminary drawing done with pencil. So, but it's the setting up the shapes that's important, and how you set up those shapes in order to have sort of a plan. It would be the same as a writer setting up the outline for a book, so that you have a plan that you can follow, that then will lead you into a successful painting. Okay, there's your quick tip.